Hello, hello. We are kicking off in just a second. Just give me a moment. But welcome, everyone. We have Champions Cup action. Scoreless game in Canada between Forge and Tigres. However, this game between America and Olympia has been quite entertaining.
¿Qué diablos estás haciendo tú en una morgue?
¿Has leído la Biblia, Brenda?
Sure, my. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cantina MX Football Podcast. We're on episode 494. We have some Jornada 4 matches to recap tonight. And we have Concacaf Champions Cup that just kicked off. We had a pretty uneventful start between Forge and Tigres 0-0. However, America was able to pull the robbery on the road against Olympia 2-1. It just finished up. We have San Diego and Pumitas playing right now, so we will make sure to update you guys as we broadcast tonight's episode. Aside from that, though, we have so much chisme to talk about tonight regarding America, regarding some players leaving, and of course, how can we not forget about our super leader and Miss Chivitas. Undefeated, perfect record, 4 out of 4. We will obviously talk about them. But before we go any further, I want to welcome everyone on Twitter Spaces and, of course, on YouTube. So please join us on either channel right now. Feel free to speak up. We are here for y'all. Have my good friend and co-host, Joel, joining us tonight. Joel, welcome.
Going on, Jaime?
¿Cómo se siente estar arriba, man? Is it cold?
No, it's good. It's good. I'm just staying a bit level-headed. He as a whole different ball game. I still want the team to do well and then the season as high as possible. I feel a lot of Chi hermanos are getting ahead. I know some of it is joking, but let's just take it one game at a time. But it makes it more fun seeing America implode. You know, having a difficult time. They can't, they were. I think they couldn't score their first 2 3 games. They've lost half their squad, um, and it's like what's going on over there. They went from the most dominant team to looking almost level with Santos Laguna, who's been making some noise as well. Some of the I don't know if it was leaked footage or they released it themselves of Junior trying to hype up the team about telling them what Santos is. I'm not sure if you've seen that video.
Yeah, I've been seeing some stuff floating around.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit exaggerated. People attacking him. I guess because he still looks like a kid. I'm not sure how old he is, but he looks very young. Um, and yeah, people are just hammering that guy and saying that Santos is doomed. Um, but we'll get on with that later in the show. Um, for now, you said there's some Champions Cup matches going on.
Yes, there is. We had a very cold front over there in Canada, Forge. They played against Tigres, and it was a 0-0 draw. And we just had a very scrappy game against Olimpia. I want to say they're from Honduras. I apologize if they're not, but I'm pretty sure Olimpia is from Honduras.
Yeah.
And they had a very scrappy game against America. America ended up winning this match at the very end. Victor Davila got things going right before halftime, but Olimpia responded with one of their own, Jorge Alvarez, in the 50th minute. In my opinion, I think Malagon could have done a little bit better on that shot, although it was a golazo. It was curling away from him, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But at the very end, Ramon Juarez was able to put a tap away in the back of the net. The goalkeeper had the initial save, but on the rebound, it was wide open for Juarez. He scored, and America get a very, very good result on the road against Olimpia. These are just the first legs, so we will wait for them to have the return legs next week, I believe, or a week after. I'm not sure. And as of right now, we just had San Diego kick off against Pumas.
Yeah, Pumas they've been improving. I think they're right there up there with Chivas.
Yeah, Pumas. What is there to say about them, right? They've been kind of like a joke for a while. I'm still questioning why they're even in the Champions Cup. Like, what did they do to merit a spot in the Champions Cup? But here they are. Lost some players. There was a rumor that maybe James Rodriguez would join, but in the end, it looks like he's going to Minnesota. They just lost Jorge Rubalcalva, which is a player that Rifaldo's been obviously praising. He's gone to New York Red Bull. But they did acquire Uriel Antuna, which is a bit of a head scratcher.
No, well, I think Antuna's a really good player. I mean, you go through, sometimes you hit, sometimes your performance can go down, you hit a wall, but he's shown he can compete. So I think he's a good acquisition. Not sure what happened. The Tigres, I think he was a Tigres or that sometimes maybe the changing coach, stuff like that happens and you fell out of favor or the change in tactics and you're no longer play a role in the club. I think that was a good pickup. And then Rubalcaba left for like $6 million, which was a good, you didn't hear that much noise, about the transfer fee because, and it's a transfer fee that gets criticized a lot, by the media and then the fans. And I think they just tag along with what the media says, where they say that the players' prices are inflated, and I think that's a good price. It's a decent price. I don't think Mex should be selling their players for cheap just because they want to send them abroad. I think that was a good, a good transfer for Pumas. I don't think the James thing was. I don't think there was much truth to it. That's just me. I don't have any info on that, but that doesn't really seem to be, for Pumas. Not that they don't get old players. But they did get, they did get Dani Alves. So
Hmm.
scratch that, Jaime.
And they
Scratch
have
that. They
Kaylor
did
Navas.
have Alves and Keylor Navas. Yeah, scratch that. Uh, I guess they're going for the olds. They go from the South American bargain bin to the retirement home, and then they'll pull whatever they can. But it's good to see Pumas doing well. It's
Mm.
one of those teams that they have some mystique to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of all the teams in Ciudad de Mexico, they're for me the least obnoxious. America is annoying, and Cruz Azul, let's not even get started. But Pumas is a university, right? So they're harmless. Although that 2004 final against Chivas still hurt. Um, with Rubalcaba, I'm sure Rifalo will have a lot to add there, but it's a bit of a head scratcher for me because he's leaving to MLS, which is an inferior league. And, if you guys don't remember, Cade Cowell is over there. He is on there on loan.
But he's on loan, right?
So, he's going to have some competition there. And, they did unveil him as a designated player. So, he should get the starting position. But, in the midst of a World Cup year, and the MLS season hasn't even started yet, it is a bit of a head scratcher. And you're going to colder climate, right? He's a California native, if I remember correctly. So having to adjust to that, and I don't know. I don't know if this is like the right move, but
I don't think it affects.
Go
I
ahead.
don't think it affects the World Cup. I don't think it affects being called to the World Cup. I think if he's doing well, and if he was already considered. So I think by now, safe to say Aguirre has about 80% of the team already selected. But I don't think that's going to play in a role of saying, "Oh, you went to that league." They still send players to Europe, and that's still a possibility for that guy. I'm going to say if he wants to go.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if this move ends up helping or hurting them. There was also a lot of transfers. I want to talk about America because, they just finished. They got their victory. Good for them. But there's been a lot of drama going on. They just announced Fidalgo is left to Betis, which, he has always desired to return to Spain. He is a Spanish kid. And, that's a huge blow for America. And then we got this drama with Alan Saint Maxime, who, easy come, easy go. He was unveiled as a Bomba signing. And, it's weird how this has all kind of unraveled in the last couple of days. RC Lens announced that they have acquired him on a free transfer. And you find out that Maxime exercised, I guess, some kind of clause on his contract says that I can cancel it because my kids have received racial abuse at school. This is a hostile environment. So, I'm basically voiding my contract and now I'm a free agent. And obviously, America pushed back. Their original post got deleted, but they did say that they were very disappointed with what transpired and that they're going to ask TAS. They're going to, basically go to the lawyers and figure this shit out. But, Joel, I think this is the beginning of the end. America won 3 in a row. Congrats to them. But I think everything good must come to an end. And this is it, man.
Well, no, it was since at the end of their third one. That's where it was the beginning of the end. They go on to lose, I believe, three more finals after that. And I think it more had to do with, when you're that successful, you really can't rest. You have to keep going for, you know, more talent. You see it with their big teams. You know, when they'll win a Champions League or whatever, and they still made signings for the next season. America didn't really make much signings. They started selling off players, and I think not sure if the building their stadium, had anything to do with that. If the money just went to making the Azteca World Cup ready, compliant,
Hmm.
that could be. I'm not sure. Um, and I mean they're still competitive, but I mean, I feel they have a team that with the right players they would have still they could have probably still won. And obviously they would have well good chances they would have won one of those three that they lost. So they could have added more silverware. Um, but I think that, and I noticed it, and I remember calling and saying if they don't bring in more players, this team is just gonna, they're gonna fall off a bit. Uh, and I don't know, man. I don't know if this season for them is a wash too. And I don't know if they were expecting to lose Fidalgo. From what I read, I think they were. Because his contract had expired, or no, not expired. He had refused to do the extension 6 months ago, and big reason he stayed was so that he could uh, he needed to stay in Mexico in order to get his citizenship,
Hmm.
which is he just acquired it, and so he's still eligible for the national team. There was some outlets trying to make a, trying to do some clickbait saying that he was gonna miss out because he was gonna leave. And he was like, yeah, right. He's not that stupid. He obviously this was a long process, and he has it. Um, so he didn't extend with America, and I think America just got like 2 million for him, which is not a lot. 'Cause he's one of their best players. Um, but I believe I don't know if he signed a contract or what, but I think he says if he returns to Mexico, he's with America. He's with America. So I think I don't see that. Even though it was 2 million, I don't see that as a loss for them because this was a player that delivered a lot for the club,
Mm-hmm.
and you wanna reward those type of players, you know,
Yeah.
and because then other players see that, and then they're gonna wanna play with your club as well. And it kind of goes against this whole narrative of you hear people say it a lot how the clubs in Mex how they'll block you and they
Oh,
won't let.
sorry, real quick. Pumas just scored.
Ah,
Golazo de Pumas, 11 minutes in, 1-0 against San Diego FC. It was a scissor kick. Incredible.
Chuck is the Chuck there? Is Chucky Lozano?
Chucky Lozano is not starting or not on the bench, so he is completely erased
Damn.
from the San Diego team.
Damn. Well, he's getting paid, and just sitting at home watching and getting the big bucks. But it will hurt his World Cup. Man, he must have pissed people off, dude. And then even the bench, he must have done something. But yeah. When we see stuff like this, we have to keep it into account because then it's always, the media will always make this huge deal and saying how Mex teams won't allow players to go to Europe or how they block them and all this. And when we see these cases, they just ignore it, you know. And so that's good to see there on that end. So yeah, we don't have none of the Americanistas have been coming in, man.
They've been quiet. They've been quiet. They've been hiding. We have Tomas, though. He wants to say something. Welcome, Tomas.
Yes, welcome.
What's up, bros? How's it going?
We chilling, man.
Good, man.
Yeah, a couple questions for you guys. I'm curious. The Maxine story, does that not seem fishy to anybody else? Like, it seems like
Yeah.
there's a lot. It seems like there's a lot more to this story. Like, you don't just up and leave because of somebody drops an N bomb at school or something. I think that either he implicated himself in some type of something went down where he's like, I need to get the hell out of Mexico ASAP, or there's some kind of shenanigans that are going on behind the scenes.
I think just maybe he didn't feel as comfortable. He wasn't exactly doing that good. Probably didn't feel that comfortable, and maybe his family didn't like it either.
But he was, if I'm not mistaken, Americanistas, they embraced him. They were.
They did.
Do you guys remember? They remember the like the highlights. They were like worshiping him, like he was like the next coming of.
Yeah,
dude. I was at the Clásico, right? It was there, and every time he touched the ball, they were sucking him off, bro. Like, they were all just like, Maxime, eres el máximo, and
but I don't mean the fans though.
Maybe the Chilango culture is just too much,
What I can say is this guy has I mean, if you look at his trajectory, he's been at a lot of clubs, and there seems to be, he has a reputation for not being the most disciplined guy. Or
like a locker room, maybe not a locker room fit.
Even Jose Mourinho said, don't, stay away from this guy. He's just not a good locker room fit, and he's not gonna, take it serious. And, there were some rumors or some things saying that, oh yeah, this guy was ordering pizza and eating tacos every day. Like, not the most disciplined guy. And, he's what do you call those players like El Loco Abreu that just like they just wander from club to club? There's like a term for that kind of player. Journeyman. Yeah, he's just a journeyman, man. He's just like, fuck it, I'll play here. They want us to offer me a contract. All right, I'll sign it.
Yeah. And then go ahead, bro. Go on.
No, for me, I just think he probably just didn't like the nightlife, He's probably coming from France, and there's probably more Africans, more of that vibe going on.
Hey, there's a lot of Haitianos in Mexico City.
But in Mexico City, I thought they were like more on the
No, they're there. I think it's him, right? It's a him problem. I don't know. It's so much of
it's a him problem.
Yeah, and the unfortunate part. The unfortunate part. It's gonna make
in the city. They'll leave like hanging with Chicharo, right? Because the wife didn't like Sevilla. That you couldn't get Uber Eats and all this shit.
I think it's gonna be unfortunate.
Like, hey, we don't like this place,
It'll be an unfortunate look. It's just like a bad luck, I guess you could say, string of international players or European players that have come to Mexico. There was Ramsey with Pumas who had his dog stolen, right, or whatever, and then this guy. It just makes the league look maybe gives a little bit of unfair perception. But the other question I wanted to give you guys is, I think we haven't had a pod since last year. So what do you guys feel, or what's your current status or feeling on the national team going to the World Cup? Are you still feeling positive, or do you think it's worse than before?
Being positive, man. I never fell for that. They haven't won the next games, or they haven't scored. To me, these are just prep games. If the coach is going to try things, if he's going to try a tactic, if he wants to see how a player does in whatever situation or playing them out of position, it's these games. So it doesn't matter to me like how the team looks. It's more of rating the individual performance and seeing which players come through, which ones, look good or do well, or how they perform under those situations. And so I've never cared much. I'm not going to judge those games and say, oh, because they looked well, they're gonna be front runners from the get go already. Mexico's not even one of the favorites. I think the favorites are already. They're nowhere near the favorites. They haven't been.
Mexico's never been a favorite.
I don't think Mexico. Not a favorite. They've been like a dark horse, where they could we're like around, I would say that's one of the things why La Volpe gets so much praise because they did these games against like Germany. They beat Brazil. They did the game against Argentina where it was like they played, toe al two por two, where it's like they were a bit unfortunate to lose, but it was like, damn, if you beat these guys, there's no telling how far you could go. And so I think we've seen Mexico at that level, and where we know what they're capable of, but we haven't seen them at that level. That's probably since then, which is damn like a good 20 years. And I don't think I think a lot has to do with the league, because they brought in a partner, so there was a drop in players. Because it's a numbers game. Ultimately, it's a numbers game. Look at Brazil. Look at how many players they produce, how many players they have in their league, how many players they have in Europe. Mexico doesn't even have those numbers. They didn't even fucking have them to begin with, and then they decide to slice that in half, and then you expect that half to produce better. So that's always to me has been the main problem. They shoot themselves in the foot because I think at the very least they would have stayed. They would have stayed at that level, and then I think they've been slowly working to fix it, and you're seeing it with all these young players that have been popping up these last years. So I think this World Cup, they'll do decent. They'll do pretty good. I think they'll get to that quinto partido. Yes, I
Which
know
is
it's no games and
round of
that's been a joke
16.
too. Yeah, I get around the 16. I guess depends the opponents and whatnot.
We expanded to
It's hard
48 teams, so it's going to take 5 games just to
Yeah.
get back to round of 16. But
But I think they'll do it.
Yeah.
I think they'll do that round of 16. I mean, because regardless who the coach was, just looking at the players, like who can really, realistically expect more? Just looking at the talent available.
Yeah. I like to add my 2 cents, Tomas. Going back to the thing about Maxime and how it makes Liga MX look bad. People that are not tapped into Liga MX, and I'm looking at like England or UK, right? Because I saw a tweet from a UK account today, and it's like, hey, like this is what's happened in the last couple of months. Well, I'm gonna mute you because I hear an echo. This is what's happening in the last couple of months is, we had Aaron Ramsey go to Pumas. He was loving it until he left his dog at a daycare and his dog disappeared. No answers. He decided to leave because he felt unsafe and unhappy with no resolution. Then we have this thing with Alan Saint Maxime, who used to play at Newcastle. So there's a lot of people still following or still interested in him. And everyone was wondering, why the fuck would you go to Mexico? Obviously, this shit's going to happen in Mexico because Mexico's like, cartel and narcos, right? So it does give us a bad image. And it's really unfortunate because there are a lot of players from Europe that come to Liga MX and love it here and have successful careers. And I think the Mexican league is in the top 10 in the world and is incredibly entertaining. And, it's such a shame that we have this like sort of bad reputation. And, the league itself doesn't even care about growing the brand or growing exposure. They make zero effort to make content outside of just week in and week out broadcasts. Like people are interested in, the players, the best players in the league. It's kind of like how the NBA or the NFL, they make these, projects with Amazon or with Netflix, and they focus on, the best players and what they're doing outside the pitch, and you get to recognize players, and maybe you start following a team just because of the play. Maybe you don't have, a dog in the fight, but you're like, hey, I really like this player. I like Gil Mora. I'm going to start following Tijuana because of that. So I think there's like a huge opportunity missed out in Liga MX, and they don't care, because they're all about profits and their own interests. They're not interested in a collective deal. And, this is a World Cup year. I feel like there's more excuses to have people tap into our league and tap into our players, but, there's just no effort there.
Yeah, they from a marketing standpoint and expansion of Liga MX, with it being a World Cup year in Mexico, this would be like the year you want to flaunt the league, right? Like you want to say like, hey, come check this out, or come invest big dollars into Mexico. So
Yeah.
That kind of sucks. Or I don't know if they just don't care. Maybe they want to keep it just to the Americas. They're happy with their current viewership. But yeah, that is interesting. It seems like of all the foreigners that come to Mexico to play, the ones that are always the happiest or that stay for the longest are always our long hated rivals, those Argentinos, no? Like they always like come to Mexico and we have a lot of like Argentinians that just stay in Mexico and they like it. Or Brazilians
Colombians.
too.
Yeah, Colombians,
Exactly.
Ecuadorians. Yep.
And I
then-
can think of
Chileans.
recently maybe Guignac is like the one
Mhm.
European guy that like fully embraced the Mexico lifestyle. So it's interesting.
Yeah. As far as Mexico's chances in the World Cup, I believe that the World Cup is a longer process and a longer project. So if you want to see results for, let's say, 2030, that process, I believe, should start like 8 years ago. And what this Mexican national team failed to do is prepare for this World Cup that is in their own backyard, because we were the second oldest team in the last World Cup, which tells me that, we did not have anyone to pass the baton to. We tried to rely on the sacred cows that we always rely on, and we didn't get out of the group stage. And we have not done a great job for this World Cup because we're still relying on some of the usual suspects to get us through this tournament. However, we have gotten a lot of young players, a lot of talented players that have sprung up in the last year and a half. And all of a sudden, some of these players that we expected to be a shoo-in for the World Cup, now it's kind of like up for grabs. But they don't have the experience and they haven't had the tenure. They haven't, didn't even go to the World Cup previously to at least ride on the bench and be part of that experience. So at the end of the day, Aguirre is going to go with his gut. He's going to go with players that he trusts. And unfortunately, those are all over-the-hill players that should not be starting in the World Cup. And that's just how it's going to be until Rafa takes over and he starts, kicking out these older players and starts just betting on the youth. I don't know if Rifaldo wants to add anything to that.
Hey, good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Welcome, man.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Thanks for having me. If I just want to aggregate anything, it's I 100% agree. I feel like the implementation of the young players that are just now catching fire is a little too late, and it's too close for comfort, to say the least. But a lot of youngsters are breaking through. Brian Gonzalez, he plays for Chivas, immediately starts all the games, immediately gets a call up, switches to the Mexican national team, doesn't do any U20. So like a lot of these younger guys are getting a serious look. But yeah, you're 100% right. Like we should have, blooded some more during the previous campaign. I believe it was Hercules Gomez who said there was no U23 players in the last World Cup squad. And so that's unfortunate, because a lot of these guys are like vulnerable because, they don't have any experience. And that's unfortunate. So, but I do think, we're trending well. And we're coming off a Molero in Bolivia, where we weren't in the castle in the sky. We were like near sea level as far as Bolivia is concerned. And we didn't look too well. But there was a lot of new faces, and I am excited for some of the people that did look really good, like Ledesma and Del Villar.
For the record, very few teams can go in there and look well.
What, in Bolivia?
It was near sea level.
In the heights of Bolivia.
But it wasn't.
Not the heights.
Oh, it was. It wasn't at the.
No, it wasn't in La Paz.
They didn't
No.
play at the Fort.
Yeah.
That was like they had to take their. So I remember the Argentines were taking Viagra. It sounds fake, but it's true. You could Google it. I don't know how that
helps with the blood circulation. It makes sense.
It was a good test. It was a scrappy fight, and Berterame scored, and that was that unfortunately solidifies his spot on the national team. I think Vasco, he's going to go with players that he trusts, and Berterame has more experience, more tenure, and that's going to be like his Guille Franco of 2010, right? even though you have a hot shot Hormiga Gonzalez who cannot stop scoring and continues to score week in and week out and should be the obvious starter, but he's not going to do that. He's going to go with the experienced players.
Yeah, but another bright spot that I thought during this last friendly was Romo in the libero role, like he's doing for Chivas. I know he didn't really feature in the second one; it was Lira doing it. But I feel like Vasco is gravitating towards the three in the back, like we see under Milito at Guadalajara, and so I do like that. I think that suits this crop of players well. And I think national teams are the most successful when you have a core of players from a certain club. And so, like 2014, it was Club America with Leon midfield, right? A few Leon players got in there. And then, now is the opportunity for it to be a back line or a spine of Chivas players. And I look forward to that because, like I said, a lot of these teams that have made historic runs in the World Cup, like Barcelona and Spain, um, Santos in Brazil, they had a base at one club. And so I'm not saying we're going to be like those teams, but I'm saying, maybe,
more like World Cup winners.
yeah.
Well, yeah, the Italy team is Juve, Milan. Spain team was Barcelona, Real Madrid. Germany was had Bayern. And you've seen that with a lot of these teams.
Chemistry goes a long way, and so I do like that Vasco's not looking at. I mean, he sees the chemistry that's happening at Chivas, and he's like, "Hey, I can tap into this," and so I'm excited to see more of that.
I know we had a lot of Chivas players in this last friendly window, but realistically, I don't think he's going to take all of them. He might take maybe 4 players. Richie Ledesma, I mean, another player that honestly should be going to the World Cup. I think he was the MVP of this last week for the league and scored a golazo, and he offers something that we just don't have right now for the national team. He knows how to cross the goddamn ball, and I think that he is a player, again, wasn't part of this cycle, but is got the one-time switch and is now someone that we should really consider for, the roster of the World Cup. Brian Gonzalez might be a harder sell. Who else was called up from Chivas? I mean, Hormiga still on the bubble. We're not sure. Piojo he's always been capped and he will probably go to the World Cup, but I don't know if he's, I honestly, when it comes to the national team, I'm not impressed by Piojo. Like, I'll be honest. And Luis Romo, who was always called up for the national team, him and Charlie Rodriguez, and a lot of fans were asking why because they don't like him, and who knows, he might bounce back, he might make the roster, but there's still a lot of question marks. And I know at the end of the day, Aguirre is going to go with his gut. He's going to go with players that he trusts, and that's going to be experienced players.
So the thing about Piojo is that he is a fairly consistent player. For Chivas, we've looked bad as a whole, but you can always count on him to come up with a handful of chances, real cutting edge chances for us. And he did that over the weekend. He had the assist, I believe, in the first goal. It was like a neat assist. So he just needs to get into good form. I think he's too slow to be out in the wings, but with the 5 in the back, we might not play with wingers. And so I think he's good cutting in. I think he's good, in that space, the final third-ish, him finding that final pass. He's a guy who can do it. And so I think I like him for the national team. As far as Charlie is concerned, I think there's other people that do it better, and this time around we had a look at Kevin Castaneda for Cholos, and we had him as like that false winger role up top, and he didn't impress too much, but I thought he was played out of position. So, Vasco's still looking for the guy. I think there's like, a center attacking midfielder role, like between Mora, Brian Gutierrez, Piojo, all those guys, spot. I think it's still up in the air, but a lot of these guys, we just need them to turn on, and Piojo looks to be trending that way. So I'm happy for that.
Yep, absolutely. Chivas are in hot form. Got yet another consecutive win over the weekend against Atlético San Luis, and it was a scrappy game. It wasn't just Chivas dominating. San Luis were at home, and there was various times throughout the game where they kind of swung things back in their favor. The most frustrating thing with Chivas was they got an awesome goal with Richie Ledesma. It was a beautiful play. And then, you are your most vulnerable at kickoff right after scoring. So they conceded a goal very, very quickly. It was a handball. It was a PK for Joao Pedro. Put it away. So it was 1-1. Then Daniel Aguirre, right? He scores. And we're all happy and celebrating. And then guess what? We concede yet another goal. So it's just like this on... It's like, yo, do we not learn our lesson? Now, luckily, it was ruled offside, but, they ended up tying up the game. And then Hormiga Gonzalez in the second half scores. And we hang on to a 3-2 lead. I don't like that. Milito has a tendency to sort of try to park the bus towards the end. He took out a lot of players and basically just try to hold on to the results. And I think it was a little too close for comfort. A better team would have definitely equalized us or gotten close. But, here we are, 4 out of 4 games, undefeated. And, Chivas, I know Joel's saying, hey, man, let's take it one game at a time. I agree. I think this is a great start to the season. And looking at who we have in front of us on Friday, we're playing against Mazatlan, who are, basically checked out, right? They've kind of announced that Atlanta is going to take their spot. So this franchise is mentally checked out. It should be an easy victory. And then America, pepper that anus, man, on Valentine's Day. We're going to push that shit in on February 14th. So I'm looking forward to extending this streak to 6 games. We'll see.
The time is nigh for us to really fuck this Wheela team up, dude, because they're coming from being a hospital to losing so many players, Fidalgo to Betis, the loss of Maxime, like we already spoke of. Let's see, who else are they getting rid of? Igor, the Chilean center back. I hear they're paying him off. And I also hear they're trying to get rid of Kevin Alvarez. So, I saw Henry Martin come back from injury today,
Yep.
which is great. But I think I think Club America needs to restructure desperately. They're looking awfully thin, and that's something that I'm not used to seeing from a Club America, a historic grande in Liga MX. I don't think they should be washing whole seasons. And I think it's a waste of Jardinet, man. This guy is a historical coach for them. I feel like they're doing him a disservice, but good for Chivas. We'll fuck them up hopefully in about a week's time. No,
it's about time that we go into a Clásico as a favorite, and it's been a long time since we've had a ridiculous, disrespectful scoreline, and I'm hoping for that, man. I want for a 5-0, 7-0, really start to show our dominance in the league. I mean, this team is gelling. We're looking good. We're playing good. All of our players are healthy, knock on wood. We had Campillo just returned, so really happy about that.
We're the only team to not give up any points thus far.
Exactly.
So things are looking good.
Things are looking good. Mazatlan have 0 points. Like I said, they're mentally checked out. So, we don't have any interruptions between jornada, 5 and 6. So I'm glad, right? Because sometimes we have these weird breaks and then you lose a lot of momentum. But no, everything's looking good. Valentine's Day is going to be pretty sweet. And, happy for Chivas and acknowledging the form that they're in, from all the media and all that. It's great. It's great to see this Milito project really start to get validated. There's also this rumor about Libertadores. I know we talk about it from time to time, but there was a lot of steam picking up this week about, you know, us returning to Libertadores in 2027, and it's by historical merit. So expect the usual suspects: America, Chivas, Cruz Azul. I'm not sure who else they would consider as a historical, um, you know, team that should return, and then also Miami FC, because obviously Messi and friends. But this is something that is picking up steam, and I don't know if FIFA or CONCACAF would allow this to happen.
I don't see FIFA blocking it. They've let they see it more as of a CONCACAF issue. Like, will CONCACAF allow it? I think if Messi's involved, that opens the door um, for the teams to return. But I felt a lot of the in the past, when Mexican teams started not, staying away from Copa America and Libertadores. That was with the old guard of Chuck Blazer and Jack Warner, and it was kind of their way of controlling Mexico and having Mexico take the tournaments here. We're kind of forcing them to take the CONCACAF tournaments more serious because there was like a concern that if they're going to care more about Copa America and Libertadores as they should, and then send the scraps to Gold Cup and Champions Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup. But I think a lot has changed. The U.S. has already hosted two Copa Americas. I do. I'll say it again. I feel Mex should definitely host a Copa America. I feel they could win one. I feel they could really. I really feel they could win one, especially playing at home. Um, and I mean, and they made like three finals, I think, two or three. Uh, but regardless, I think that's doable. I don't know why they haven't tried to host one, but yeah, I think that was a big tell that the U.S. has hosted two Copa Americas. So Libertadores is not that. It's not out of the question. It's mainly been because of the calendar, but I guess they'll figure something out. And I think even Conmebol is willing to bend over backwards to get Messi in there. Because I think they want that uh, kind of that spotlight, that spotlight, because I think they've lost a bit of they lost a bit of pizzazz. I would have been like it's just been Brazilian teams winning. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've won the last three.
Yeah, it's been pretty dominant.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. They need to get this tournament.
Well, the Argentines are all broke, man. They're selling their kids like before they're out the womb. These players that would.
Well, they're losing. Yeah, and if they don't sell them, they're losing them. Yeah, or they're losing them because they get scouted that heavy. Shit. Yeah. So I do think, and the other teams haven't really offered much. The Peruvians, the Bolivians, the Chileans, Ecuadorians. I mean, yeah, dropping the ball, man. You guys have yet to see. I don't think we've seen a strong team from those. You have to go way back to like, what was that? They're from Asuncion, and I remember they won it in their centenario. I don't know if it's like Olympia too. I'm trying to remember. I'll have to look for it. But yeah, it's been a while since you've seen like stronger teams from those countries. Even the Colombians, at one point you had like Millonarios and the Cali, just throwing hands. Now it's just the Brazilians and the RGs.
Colo Colo, and then Peñarol.
Yeah.
Once Caldas. You had teams that were just a thorn on the side in Libertadores, and even like Vélez, aside from like River and Boca. You had like Vélez, you know, and you had some other teams that were like.
Oh yeah, the Vélez was Bianchi, and they go on, and I think they beat Milan in the Intercontinental Cup. But yeah, that that I and you know I think for those teams it's like you see now these leagues popping up in the Middle East and whatnot, and so they're losing more players. so
Mm.
so yeah, they kind of stuck. They're not as strong as they used to be because there's just more countries have start putting more money into their leagues and just taking players. So I think it's a possibility. I would say it's a strong possibility.
So my only pushback is that the two confederations don't see eye to eye. During the Copa America Centenario in the U.S., the first one in which Mexico loses, I think 7-0 to Chile. What's it called? During that one, the USA ran it, right? Like their federation ran
Well,
it.
yeah, they were hosting.
And they were criticized by CONMEBOL for leaving money on the table. And then CONMEBOL took over this last one, and they were criticized for
Infrastructure. Oh, we
Well,
lost.
they had the whole ticketing problems. I don't know if you guys remember the problem where
and like cutting corners, like instead of
he
Oh,
came and left.
Rifardo,
Where fans were running
you're
into
cutting
the
in and out,
stadium.
Rifardo.
Yeah, check your connection, man.
I remember that shit was a
Get on
shit show
Skylight.
though. Like, remember there's like
And then they
there
were
was
charging
the fans in the fucking vents and shit. That was crazy, bro.
Yeah, it did. It looked like third world, man. And then they were charging the media. They were charging them like $25
Oh, for lunch and
for a
shit.
box.
Oh my
And
god, bro.
it's like a $10 meal at best. Yeah, that shit was wild.
That shit was
Yeah, Combo did
crazy.
a fucking mess. But I think they understand that they need the region here more than this region needs them. I mean, obviously, competitively uh, benefits. Concacaf benefits, but at the end of the day, it's money that makes this shit run. And
Dude, with
and
all these like streaming wars and acquisitions, right? Like
yeah,
Paramount got UFC and there's an incentive for these like these networks to be like, hey, how can we get like Libertadores rights and then incentivize like, hey, like wait, Liga MX is super popular. Let's get them back in and let's make this exclusive on, I don't know, Apple or Amazon or one of those like ESPN Plus or DAZN, right? Like they could easily like turn this into a hot commodity because the interest is there. And, everybody wants Liga MX to go back to Copa Libertadores. I'm sure everyone's tired of seeing the same Brazilian teams win it every single year. So, yeah, after the World Cup, hopefully they break some bread and figure this shit out because the rumor was 2027. And we have Ron joining us. Let me see if I can get him in. Welcome, Ron. Talk to me. You're on mute, buddy. Maybe his thing's not working. Hello? I can't hear anybody. Can you guys hear? Can you guys talk?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, there we go. Welcome, Ron.
Hey, what's up, Hyman?
Yeah, do you have anything to add on the rumor about Mexico returning to Copa Libertadores?
Until I see an official communication from the FMF and the EMX, I won't hold my breath. I've been teased too many times since we left.
Yeah.
From what I read, I think they said that they want to bring MLS back and basically give what if I understood correctly is have a direct spot, one for MLS, one for Liga MX, and then each of them would also have to have like a knockout round or whatever. Like so, in all potentially, they could have two teams. If I understood that correctly.
I see. So they just
I
keep
mean,
teasing us.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's how it's supposed to be, Liga MX is getting the shit end of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if participated in Copa Libertadores, but they did participate in Copa Sudamericana, and they got their asses handed to them bad. I mean, they had MLS had no fucking business, playing that tournament. And I know that that's 20, 21 years ago, right? But in those 20 years, how many? It's not like MLS has gotten a lot of wins on Mexican soil. Very few, and they've only won since then, since 25. They've only won one Champions League. Not a very good record. And if they can't muster up, I mean, if they can't get a bunch of wins in Mexico, getting wins in Santiago, in Buenos Aires, in Rio, Sao Paulo, and all these areas, it's going to be really difficult. So I think if they're going to go like equal, that's bullshit. The Mexican teams have, they proved themselves in Libertadores and Sudamericana. I do wish that I want them to go back to how it was, where I understand, that Mexico pertains, the federation, pertains to, Concacaf, and they also have to participate in the Gold Cup and in the Champions Cup and stuff like that. I believe they did away with the Champions League format, and they went back to almost like kind of like how they had it before with the Cup format, which I think is fine, because that would allow based on the calendar for Liga MX to go back into Copa Libertadores. I mean, I would love for them to go back to both Copa Libertadores and Sudamericana, but I'd settle for Libertadores. I'd settle for Libertadores and Copa America. But again, if MLS is going to get the same treatment, I think the federation is basically taking it in the ass, because one has a proven track record and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe that will change after Messi retires, because I understand why CONMEBOL would want MLS there because of the Messi factor, and I get it,
Yeah.
But in terms of having a proven track record, knowing that they can go out there and they can go toe to toe and beat them in Sao Paulo, beat them in Buenos Aires, beat them in the Bombonera, beat them in Monumental, beat them in those really historic venues. Yeah, then come talk to me.
Yeah.
So that's that's what I think.
I agree. I think based on merit, Mexico should at least have 4 spots, maybe, minimum 2 to 3, and then give MLS like 1 spot,
I mean, yeah, I mean, 2. I mean, I can get 2 of them, but I mean, honestly, I would have given, based on the track record, I would have given Mexico, Liga MX 3 direct and 1, playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm able to interject, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So historically, Liga MX owners have been very short-sighted, right? They go for the easy cash grab up front, the low-hanging fruit. And when you add to that the fact that like almost every event in which Liga MX and MLS face off, it's always geared in a way to like siphon our fans into the MLS, to try to get them to latch on to MLS support, because we have the fans and they have the infrastructure, but they don't have the fans, right? They have this great, currency that they do it on, and big stadiums and coverage, media conglomerates, a whole bunch of them, right? But they don't have the fans. And so like I could definitely see if this manifests into anything, Liga MX getting shafted for sure. I think that would be what we should expect actually.
Well, I mean, they've tried and tried and tried to basically, catch, not necessarily so much the second, the first generation, but they've tried to get the generations after, like especially in the Mexican community. They know that they can get the Central American, and to a certain degree, there may be some of the lesser South American federations like the Bolivians, the Peruvians and stuff like that. But overall, Liga MX has a better product because they not only do they have the history, they have the infrastructure, they have the fan base, and it's a fan base that I would have to disagree with you on what talking about the league, the owners, because the phenomenon that you see with Mexican soccer in the U.S. is not something that started 10, 15 years ago. It's basically since the 1930s and 40s. So I mean, they're not short-sighted. They're actually very savvy in that regard, because I mean, they've been coming and they've been catering to the Mexican American community, and to a certain degree, even the Hispanic community in general. Be it Central Americans, South Americans. I just think that recently, though, because of the partnerships that both federations have, I'm not really liking it. And I get why they did it, is because they wanted to host a World Cup. But in doing so, I think that Liga MX has basically conceded territory. And it's something that I've been very, very critical of, because I do not see the benefit of basically, getting embedded with some in MLS and USF, and basically it's like, that's not what got you success. What got you success was basically risking it in South America, and having to play not only against very good competition over there, but basically also having to play against the dark arts, the shoddy, field conditions, the shitty, refs and stuff like that. That's what got, the Mexican Federation and the, and the teams credibility. And right now, I don't think that we have a lot of credibility in both in sporting terms and organization. And my thing is this: either you commit or you don't. So if you're going to commit and you're going to basically basically put your eggs all in one basket and side with MLS and stuff like that, do it. But that means that you have to retain your best players. And both MLS and Liga MX, they're not doing that. They're okay with sending Pepe and all these players to these B-rate C-rate clubs in Europe. It may be helping out the player, but it's not really helping out. I don't think it's really been helping out the entire system. The entire national team or the league. So I don't think it's. I think it's. I just think that we're right now. You're kind of in uncharted waters right now, because there's a lot of things that are very, really uncertain in terms of how it's going to pan out, like the streaming wars, the consolidation of power in both in the federation and in the league. I don't really know how it's going to play out in terms of like Liga MX and how they want to go about it internationally, whether they're going to commit more with MLS in Canada, or if they're going to really, go back to South America, which just about everybody that I know, in terms of the pundits and stuff like that, they're saying, hey, sacrifice a little bit of the money and go out there and duke it out like you used to. And I'm in that camp.
Yeah, but that camp is the minority. Like that camp is not in power. These guys, they've struck gold with the northern fan base in the United States, the diaspora of Mexicans and Mexican Americans. They know like that's what gives them money, and so like they're focused on that, as opposed to like I don't know, growing the Mexican name abroad, and conquering new territories. They're
but
not conquering this one.
A reason is also because Mexico, FOC, FMF understands how much money they bring to the table, and it's sort of them wanting a bigger piece of the pie. As far as like TV rights and whatnot, and I think that was an issue. And with this new one, who knows what's being negotiated?
So you have
the rights.
So you have the best of both worlds. Up until 10 years ago, you could still participate in your own confederation's tournaments and take it serious. But again, I remember reading an article when CONMEBOL finally decided to basically give permanent status, not just to the league, but not just to the national team, but to the league in general. You actually had, I don't remember if it was I don't remember who the sponsors was. I don't remember if it was, I think it was that tire company, if I'm not mistaken. Bridgerton or whatever it is.
Bridgestone?
I think it was the Bridgestone. I think that's what it was. It was basically the early sponsor of the Libertadores, when Mexico finally became a direct participant. And he basically said that the only reason that they decided to partner up and become sponsors is because their condition was we want direct participation.
That was Banco Santander.
That's right. So they basically said, if you don't include the Mexican teams, we don't want to be a part of this. And the president of the company, the one dealing with that, said it in an interview. So I mean, that was the power of the Mexican, the Mexican in Mexico, and also the Mexican American in the U.S. And if you think about it, I mean, Argentina has a population, of 45 million? And then you have the Mexican Americans in the U.S., Mexican Americans that are 30, 35 million, or however, how many there are. So, I mean, it's, for me, I'm hoping, and this is just me speculating, that I'm hoping that the marriage is not going, I mean, like the little mergers that they have right now with, with the Canadians and the U.S. and stuff, is that after the World Cup, if I'm not mistaken, we have the World Cup this year, and I think we have the Women's World Cup. I think they're trying to host it. I think they're trying to partner up as well, right, to have the female. I'm hoping if that, after that, things go back to normal. That's what I'm hoping. Because I know that the CONMEBOL president, I've heard him, in numerous interviews in the last 10 years, basically begging the Mexican teams to go back. Which is really funny because when we were growing up, they didn't want us, especially the, and I say this, respectfully, is that like the smaller federations in South America, they especially didn't want the Mexican teams.
Well, yeah, because that tournament is their their vitrina, their showcase for their talent. And so if their team made it past the group stage or made a good run, that gave their top players, more spotlight. But now you have these Mexican teams coming in and wiping the floor with the smaller teams, and just taking away their spotlight.
Yeah.
They just basically snatched it, man. They went U.S. and Venezuela, taking Maduro on them. They just snatched that shit overnight. It was crazy to see it.
So, and another thing is, going back to MLS and like the little bit that I've read of how it might go down, if MLS and League MX go back in 2027. I'm actually rooting for MLS to go into the tournament because, and this is for selfish reasons. It's the same reasons that I had when I was rooting for the MLS to survive and to grow and stuff like that. Is because I mean, just a couple of years ago, I had Club America in Philly playing a Champions League. It's like, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, the guys, especially the guys in Texas and the guys in California, you guys are lucky because you guys always had teams from Mexico going and playing, whether it's exhibitions or whatever, right? But now you're getting basically official tournament. You're basically watching official, games in the U.S. and watching Club America or whatever, Chivas and stuff like that. Now you have Copa Libertadores in the U.S. I mean that's badass. So I actually want MLS to have more teams, but not at the expense of Liga MX. So I'm hoping it happens. Because I think that'd be a good thing, at least for us on this side of the border.
Hey, Ron, what's going on with your Club America, man? You got some racist allegations from Alan St. Maxime. Fidalgo couldn't get out of there quick enough. He's now at Real Betis. Hey, we have a date on Valentine's Day, man, and it's gonna be lovely on our side. I don't know about you guys.
So, I don't know all the details regarding Maximine. I just knew that there were problems stemming from last year. Again, I don't know if the allegations are true, whether he tried to use a personal issue to basically kind of get out of the contract. So, honestly, I'm kind of glad that he left. I mean, he started off well, but then you could sense that he was not all there. And it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like almost remember the other Frenchman. What's his name? Shit.
Jeremy Menez.
Yeah, him. It's like he wasn't all there with practices and this and like, and those are little things that you started to hear, you hear about and stuff like that. I mean, because there's been, since Guignac, there's been quite a few Frenchmen that have come, to Liga MX, and you're thinking it's like, well, maybe these guys are seeing the success that Guignac is having, and stuff like that, and they come here and they come to Liga MX and they think, okay, if Guignac is doing it, I can do it too, and then they find out it's not easy. In terms of Fidalgo, what better way to leave a club with the doors open? That's really, I don't care whatever profession it is, whether you're a footballer or an engineer or architect. You leave one place and you still have the doors open, you did something right. He's going to be sorely missed. I wish him all the best. The comment that El Maestro put in his Instagram regarding Fidalgo is I on, and I think he may have divulged some information, some private information about when you come back, so I think Fidalgo is going to suit up for the national team. If I'm to interpret what Reynoso said in his Instagram, right? And again, I'm not opposed to Fidalgo coming onto the national team. I don't think right now Mexico has a player like him right now. I think, I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy right now, but if I were to bet, I think America makes it to semifinals. I still think that they have a good team. And I think, some of the players that left, I'm okay with. I wish they would have gone a couple more reinforcements. But I think it was in panic mode because 3 games they didn't score, whatever. That sometimes I tend to think in terms of what do you do on the road, what do you do at home? If you can steal a lot of points on the road, because for those 3 games where they went without scoring. So technically they had one draw, 2 draws and a loss, right? Mm-hmm. And they basically, they drew away. So they were able to get points on the road. And now obviously they finally won, and then now they won tonight in Honduras and stuff like that. So I actually liked how they played today. I watched the game and I thought it was enjoyable. They were balanced in the sense that they didn't try to just after winning after scoring they didn't try to park the bus or anything like that. They tried to win the game, and that's always a good sign. I think they're going to close out the season fairly strong, because I'm liking the last two games that I've watched. I'm liking what they're doing on the field. Again, it's not perfect. They still have some they actually have to improve, especially I think that right now, from what I've seen, is that the transition basically going from the mid to the forwards right now it's a little shaky. I don't know if Henry Martin is basically going to recover. I honestly think that this may be it for him. I'm hoping he proves me wrong.
He played today.
Because even if he doesn't, what's that? He did play today, and even if he doesn't, I've always said this about Martin. And even with Raul Jimenez, I know that everybody has this mindset that the only role that a forward needs is to score goals, and I understand that. But you also have those forwards that can also build in the can basically be quote unquote like almost like playmakers, holding the ball properly, and stuff like that. And I thought that Martinez has always been very, very wonderful doing that. So I'm hoping he proves me wrong, man. I really do, because I think he's a really good player. I think he's fantastic in the locker room, and again, I think they're turning it around.
A lot of copium there, man. I honestly think you guys are going to get your shit pushed in on Valentine's Day, and this is going to be a long season. You're also losing players to the national team once they start that training camp. So I don't see your youth players or reserve players or the players you have on your bench really stepping up and trying to carry this team to a Liguilla, but we shall see.
I told you that. I told you that, that's always going to be an issue, or that's been an issue with America, in terms of them losing players to national team duties, and especially now during the World Cup, cycles. But on that same token, I mean, that could also happen to Chivas, because I mean, recently how many players were called up for Chivas?
Yeah, like 8,
like something like that. It's ridiculous, and I made the comment some weeks back that I remember Vergara used to get pissed off about that, and basically call out La Volpe. It's like, dude, if you're not going to play them, don't steal them from me.
Yeah. Especially at that time, we were competing in Libertadores, so it was hard to lose those players.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, and that is going to be a factor. I mean, there's no denying it, losing players to national team duties and stuff like that. And then obviously the injuries. But again, like I said, I think if I was to bet, I think easily, with the roster that they have and the coaching that they have, I think that they're almost a shoe-in, at least for the semis.
Yeah, interesting.
And one of the things that like, for example, that I like about playing in these international tournaments, I've always seen this as a blessing in disguise, is that because you don't want to, and I hate using this word like the load management, but overload. One of those good things, one of the good things about, playing in like, in these international tournaments was that the coaches were forced to basically, play some of the younger, more inexperienced players, which that always helped in the long run. So with Ahmed back in, in the Champions League, or in the Champions Cup, I'm sorry, the Concacaf, that's going to help out, I think, to your point, see which younger players are going to, can deliver. Because you're right. I mean, America was doing things very, very well in the youth system. Then they got rid of what's the name, Tena, and they've, they haven't been as successful, but I think they're still doing okay.
So, like, I'm looking at this Club America lineup tonight for the Concacaf against Olympia, and we had Davila, Chiquito Sanchez, Alexis Gutierrez, and Zuniga as the attacking four. right? And I'm like, these guys are all fucking schmucks, dude. And then you bring on old man Henry Martin, who's on his last leg, and I'm just like, this team, I don't know, it looks like a paper tiger.
So Chiquito, the guy from Pachuca, right?
Yeah.
Now that guy, believe it or not, I still have I still have some hope for him. I know that, and I've told you this before. When he was with Pachuca, they hyped him up, right? But there's a difference between playing in Pachuca and playing at America. And he has shown some, signs of brilliance. I'm hoping that he picks it up because, like I said, I mean, what he did in Pachuca was really good stuff, amazing stuff. He hasn't been as amazing at America. He's had, some bright spots, but he's been and you're right, he's been pretty much average. So I still have a little bit of hope for him with stuff like that. But again, I mean, with the injuries, with the call-ups, and then losing, your players and stuff like that, America's going to have to, some of these players, the positions are up for the take. Who do you out of the players that you named, who do you think shouldn't even be there?
Alexis Gutierrez, man, he's been fucking anonymous, dude, for like a long time, and he's still getting called up by Vasco, even too. He was good for Cruz Azul under Anselmi. Then he's been anonymous for Club America. I don't know what he does. He's like the another version of Charlie. So I'm not impressed by him. Jonathan Dos Santos, I think he's old. I saw Juarez get muscled off on the ball by this big 9 for the Catrachos, and they almost scored, but he redeemed himself with that late goal. He's good. He's getting called up. He's probably like 5th or 6th choice for the selección. But yeah, this team looks super thin. You had Brian Rodriguez and Zendejas off the bench, who are the best players for this team. But I'm unconvinced. I'm unconvinced by this team. And I feel the exact opposite for Chivas, who is 4-4. So the cards are in our favor for the first time in a long time.
So you think that Chivas is going to maintain?
I think yeah. I think they're on course to get 6 points, because as Jaime already mentioned, Mazatlan's checked out. They're a dead man walking, and so I think that's going to be a pretty easy game for them to win. It's not guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. And then Club America is in this vulnerable state, I feel. Because the transfer window is closed for most teams. So if Club America is going to buy, I believe they still can, right? But they're limited.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up. We are in February, and yeah, I don't think they can make any moves anymore. Looking forward to seeing more of this America drama unveil. I do think Maxime did it dirty though, saying that there was racism and that's why I left. I think that maybe America wins their case with Das because he did get to leave for free. But yeah, I'm sure it's not over yet. We had a big signing. We have Abed Vargas joining Madrid Junior, aka if he's going to immediately go to Madrid or if he's going to maybe finish out this season with Seattle and then go over the summer. I'm not sure, but a big signing for Mexico, right? And he's not the first Mexican player to go to Atletico Madrid. My question is, again, this is a World Cup year where the most important thing is form. The most important thing is consistent minutes. You think it's a gamble him going to Atletico Madrid, where he will most likely be a bench player for the next couple months leading up to the World Cup?
I think there's a lot to learn in the old continent. We've seen a lot of players rot on the bench, come back, and then just be, pedestrian, right? So it's not a guaranteed, launch pad for success. But I gotta give the boy his chops for making it not just this far, because I think it's hard to break out as a professional player from Alaska. So like him making it this far in itself is probably a miracle. But I give him chops for like wanting to excel at the highest level. And La Liga is probably the second best team. I mean, second best league in all the world. Los Colchoneros are probably one of the biggest teams in all of Europe. A tier below the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid. But Simeone is a very successful, revered coach, and I think he's got a lot to learn, a lot to teach this kid. It's going to be hard to break through. We have Raúl Jiménez only score one goal for Atletico de Madrid.
Yeah.
It was a crazy stacked team, though. I remember this team by Simeone. I think it was like 10 years ago almost. But everyone was tall as fuck, dude, and like thick and played dirty. So like every like free kick was like almost a goal. It was crazy, man. And Raúl Jiménez is tall, and he was one of the shorter guys on the whole team. So I'm excited. I think Simeone has moved from that sort of football. He's got a lot of skilled players like Alvarez and a few other guys. But it's the big leagues, and I hope for the best, and I have to commend him for manufacturing this move, which is a step up without a doubt.
Yep. It says his move to Atletico Madrid marks his first professional experience in Europe. He previously faced our team in the inaugural FIFA World Cup held in the United States. Our new player successfully completed the required medical examination, and it looks like, he is going straight to Madrid. So he's going to get incorporated into the team immediately and has signed until June of 2030. So kudos to him. Wish him the best of luck.
So through his mother. So through his mother, he has access to an expedited European passport or just an outright Spanish passport. So he will not take a foreign spot, which is great for him. I think that's a big hindrance to us, and it's something that a lot of Brazilians and Argentines have that Mexicans don't, because they came in barcos 100 years ago, and the Spanish heritage of a lot of Mexicans is hundreds of years old, as opposed to the recent migration of Argentina and Brazil. So he's an exception to that. It gets you a foot in the door easier. I remember Memo Ochoa was struggling to get a team at one of the best, one of the bigger teams in Europe, because he couldn't manufacture a European passport. It's a hindrance for a lot of guys.
But I think for Mexicans is not seeking that out. Because I know if he would have stayed in France, Memo would have gotten this sooner. But then there's been players that they just didn't say anything about it. Like Borghetti was in England and he had an Italian passport. And the coach, Sam, I can't say his last name, Big Sam, he didn't even know. He didn't even know that he.
Scolari. It was Scolari, right?
No. It was Borghetti in Bolton. Sam something. He's the guy that got caught when he was like the coach of England. He got caught like doing some crooked shit. Like they recorded him in a pub. But I mean, our DC or something.
But I know what you're talking about. But he had the Italian passport and he didn't even know it.
The Nigris, the coach didn't know. But I mean, I didn't even know. I didn't even know because it's not like announced. The Nigris had a lot of. There's a lot more that can have it. They just have to do the process, or even since they're younger. But sometimes if there's like some family, then you just hire like I forgot what it's called, but they'll check the birth and records and all that. But I don't think Mexicans kind of do that a lot, and there's a lot that could easily get that. They could get it, like you said, expedited. But for whatever reason, it's just not, it's not something that thinking about. As soon as you go to Europe, they're not thinking about if I do this, it'll help me. It'll help my chances if I get a passport.
Yeah, I think it's interesting
Also,
that they mentioned that he is eligible for a Spanish passport. I don't know if that helps with, like, are there restrictions in La Liga where they can only have a certain amount of foreigner spots?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they already because of the Bosman. So the other Europeans that are in the European Union, they don't count as foreigners.
See,
So
that's
I
sticky
think it's
price.
just like 3 or something like that are coming in from like Africa, South America, and so that's why it's very competitive for a lot of these players when they go abroad because there's just very little spots on the team for them.
Well, I wish Obed the best of luck. It's quite a jump from MLS, and I do agree, Rifalo. Like, he's gonna learn a lot of shit, especially being under El Cholo Simeone. So at least, if anything, if he doesn't get minutes or anything, he'll be in ship shape and probably have some physical training that he hasn't had before. But for me, it's always about players that are playing 90 minutes week in and week out, and he's also not guaranteed to get a spot on the World Cup roster. So, but obviously him going to Atletico Madrid before the World Cup, that's probably going to give him a strong case, but we shall see. We shall see what happens.
Isn't Simeone leaving after the season?
Who?
Isn't Cholo Simeone leaving after the season?
Is he?
I don't think so.
I thought I read that he basically said that after the season he's done it at Atletico. Well, let me try to find it. Hold on.
That would be big news because he's been there for for a long time.
So January 29th, I'm reading that Diego Simeone has told the board he will leave the club at the end of the season. The decision has been made and expected to be official very well. Hold on, so who reported on that? That reported on. Let me see if I can find a more verified account than that. Hold on.
So MSN is stating that it could happen. So I think it's still up in the air. But I wanted to touch on one thing for Obed, and it's that this move is facilitated from Seattle to Atletico de Madrid. I don't think this move happens if he's playing for a Liga MX team. I just don't think it happens. I think he stays and he becomes another player who could have and should have probably gone to Europe, but instead, played in Liga MX for the majority of his career. So I think.
Wait, why? What you basing that on?
I think more players from MLS have an easier time of going to Europe than Liga MX players.
Yeah, but the Liga MX players that don't go to Europe is not because the club blocked it. It was because they took the money. They took a contract where they're getting paid big money, and then they expect the club to bend over backwards and hold their ankles and give them for free to a Euro team. And that's not how it works. And we've seen the players that are like, they prioritize Europe, that we just talked about it earlier. You missed the segment with Fidalgo. They didn't block him. They let him leave, and he left really cheap, like $2 million. And that's because he didn't extend his contract. Had Fidalgo extended his contract 6 months ago, they were not going to sell him for $2 million. I mean, they already paid him that in wages. He might as well pay his own, which we've seen some of the other players do that because, they realize, I blocked him myself. But I think the clubs get a bad rep because they're expected to sell players cheap. Because early on we were talking about Obed, how he left for $6 million. I don't see a Euro team offering that, but that doesn't mean he's not worth that. He's worth it if there's teams that are willing to pay it, and there obviously was. But I do think we've seen so many players go abroad already, even from Chivas, where it's like, come on, man, the common denominator is not the club just blocking you because they have some agenda. It's the players, man. They will a lot of times sign on the dotted line for big money and big bonuses.
I
And
agree.
with
I agree. I don't think it's all on the players, or I don't think it's all on
San Diego
on the
ties it up
clubs.
1-1. Sorry, 68 minute.
No worries, no worries. Pobre Pumas. But what was I gonna say? What's it called? Even though it's not anyone's fault, right? Like it's nuanced, like you're saying. There's a bunch of factors. Money, inflated value goes up or down. But like the bottom line is that less players go to Europe from Liga MX than the MLS. And so for whatever reason, Obed is more likely to go because he is part of the MLS as opposed to Liga MX. So I'm just saying, I don't think it would have happened if he had been one of our players. And so that's just the state of affairs.
We just shipped out the Mexican Fidalgo to Betis. What are you talking about? Yeah, no, I agree. I think not saying it's not possible, but I think MLS has established their networks and all that stuff. In Europe, they have a stronger foothold. And yeah, I think the negotiations in MLS.
But also they sell their players for peanuts.
Negotiations in MLS are easier.
Because they let them leave for peanuts, but a lot of times they don't even pay them that much. So that's part of it. That's
I'm sure they kept some
criticism
future
of MLS is.
I'm sure they kept the percentage of his sale.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen Mexicans do that. Pachuca has done it many times. So that's what I'm saying. It's up to the player. JJ Macías left to Europe. They didn't block him. He was able to leave. What's his face? Damn, he was on the dating show. Can't believe I'm forgetting his name.
But Macías, he famously, had to forego good wages.
But he went. Yeah, but the club didn't. The club didn't block him.
But he comes from a privileged background where money's not an issue, right? And so like he had the privilege to go, and then like we mentioned Fidalgo to Betis, he has a European passport, having been born in Spain. He's a product of La Castilla Academy, and so like he's not going to be counted as a foreign player. So like there's like certain reasons why these moves were facilitated, and they're not the rule but the exception, in the sense that like they're not some part of some big trend. They're a blip in the trend, if anything.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying because it's cheaper. The Euro teams, they want to pay peanuts because of the limited access. Unless you're really hot shit, they're not gonna. Unless they're opening the coin purse to take you, odds are you're not gonna get a fair shake. Because that happens a lot too. You could talk about other players from MLS, but how many actually succeed? Just going abroad doesn't really mean shit in the grand scheme of things. There's a lot of South Americans that went abroad and then ended up coming back, just because it's very cutthroat, where you're not going to get a fair shake, especially if they're paying peanuts. And it was the one thing they were doing over there with youth, where the FIFA had to change the rules because these teams were taking all these young players, and then if they didn't make it, they would just abandon them there. They weren't even sending them back home. It was sort of like, hey, you're on your own, kid. And so you had all these homeless kids in the streets and shit. Probably some really good cascaritas, but it's just how it is. It's very cutthroat over there, and we tend to like glamorize it. Oh, you went, and they're doing not really doing things right. They're just it's just business, There's not so much that they did something and they're benefiting from it, because most of these clubs, I haven't seen them benefit from sending their players abroad.
Different model, you know, and Liga MX, a lot of players are held hostage, but at the end of the day, Joel, I do agree.
No,
It's up to the
hostage? Jaime,
it's up to the
name
player.
me one
It's up to the
held
player.
hostage. Yeah, but I mean, come on.
I will
they're
say,
not held hostage. If you signed on the dotted line, that was you. That was on
exactly
you for doing that.
prime example, Joel,
Because I remember-
is Alexis Vega, right? Like, if he really wanted to, if he really wanted to, he would have been in Europe right now, but he decided to get paid.
When he said he turned down the offer. I keep forgetting to.
Chiquete, right? Another guy. He could have went to Belgium and he decided to go to Cruz Azul. Like, there's so many stories and so many instances of players that if they really wanted to go to Europe, they would find their way. Orbelín Pineda's in Europe. You know, you have players that have made it.
He was at Chivas. He was in the dating shows. I'm forgetting his name, man.
Fabian.
Marco Chelas, Fabian.
Fabian, there you go. That would drink. Marco Fabian, there you go. This guy, when Chivas brought him back, he had gone to Cruz Azul, and I think they had a buy clause or whatever. And they bring him back to Chivas, and he signed a contract that had a clause. So he did end up going to Europe. So that's what I'm saying. It's up to the players a lot of times. And even they don't have good agents, because the agent's not going to give a shit if you go to Europe. They're going to care more about getting their payday. And that's what happens a lot of times with some of these players, where it's like they're just misled, or they just don't have that. They're just not thinking of that, of like, I'm in a year or two, I want to leave. So you see, like Pizarro, you know, he was in the Pachuca team that was sending all those players, and he was one of the, he was like next in line, and he was one of the players that was like, promoted to be going as well. And then he does that big contract to Chivas. They pay like all these millions, and at that point, it's like, yeah, you're not leaving next year or the year after that, unless you're like fucking killing it. There's no way, they're not going to pay 20 million or whatever from abroad. And then what does he do? He signs another contract for another 17 to send to Monterrey. So I mean, I honestly, that's on him right there, where he made his choices. He made his choices, and he kept himself in the league longer than if he would have just negotiated some smaller contract or refused. Because that's the other thing that gets played out, like in the media. They made it seem like they forced him to go to Chivas,
Mm-hmm.
Like they said, oh, I came to the club and they told me I've been sold or negotiated, blah, blah. And it's like, that may be it. The clubs, of course, are going to negotiate, but you still have to sign. You still have to agree. And if you don't, then you get to leave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. It's up to the player. If the player really wants to go to Europe, he will. Sometimes they get forced their hand, like, Camberos, right? He didn't want to extend his contract with Chivas. He wanted to go to Europe. In the end, they kind of like forced him to, and now he is on the bench. So we shall see. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had on the docket. We did have Jorge Sanchez, another Mexican player. He has signed with a Greek team. I don't really rate Jorge Sanchez that high, but good for him to give his chances over there in the Greek league. It's been, I know at one.
But I mean, I think his career kind of like just plateaued. But like I said, I like you, I wish him the best over there.
Yeah, I wish him the best. That's all you can really do. I know Araujo, he just joined Celtic, and he's doing a great job over there, even though it is an inferior league. You still like to see players do well out there. So we have a lot of moving parts, a lot of players going in and out, and that's exciting. Because we did have a few dry spells in the summertime. I felt like we lost more players to Europe than gained. So we'll monitor the situation closely. And this Pumas game has turned on its head. They are now losing 2-1 to San Diego, 78th minute. This comes to no surprise. Pumas always choke against MLS teams. And, there's two legs. So maybe Pumas will be able to get them at home. But right now, with about 12 minutes, it's all San Diego's game. And another notable thing is no Chucky Lozano, not even on the bench. So I'm not sure what's going to happen to him. Javier Aguirre is in attendance, so he is at the stadium. Maybe he'll try to talk to him. I'm not sure. And there's also reports that Aguirre is also going to talk to Fidalgo. He's actually going to go to Spain and talk to him. And that sounds like they're going to try to convince him to suit up for the national team.
Do you know what the tie-breaking format for this edition of the Concacaf?
It's a great question. I don't have the answer. I'm assuming it's away goals, but I could be wrong.
I mean, if that's the case, it wouldn't be the worst result for Pumas.
Yeah.
If the away goals count, because obviously great result for America. They beat Olimpia.
Right.
Tigres. They pulled out a point, but no away goal.
I mean, it was in Canada, in January, so I imagine it's freezing cold up there. So I'm not surprised by the 0-0 scoreline.
Yeah, it was like negative 20 degrees at one point. So
yeah, I don't think it's a bad result for Tigres. I don't, and all things considered, I know I like to make fun of Pumas, especially since they've really screwed the pooch.
I'm not going to count this team out. They could still tie this game today, but they're coming off a 4-0 victory over Santos, I believe. And Jordan Carrillo scored 2 goals over the weekend. So, a couple days ago.
It's Santos, though, bro. They're the only reason Santos is not in last place because Mazatlan is checked out.
You can only beat what's in front of you. So, Pumas, I'm not going to count them out. Oh, they just let in another one. Never mind.
That was perfect timing. Oh, wow. Keylor Navas with the fucking butterfingers. Yeah, that's bad.
So what is it, 3-1 now?
It's 3-1.
Oh, fucking Pumas. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It was a header, and Keylor kind of parried it away, but, the rebound was a tap in. Super easy. It's now 3-1. No surprise to me.
They're fucked. They're fucked.
Yeah, they are fucked. Maybe Antuna can do something in the next leg. But yeah, this is not looking good for Pumas. Again, why are they even in this tournament, man? What merit have they done to get into the Champions Cup? It's disgusting.
Hold on, I'm trying to look up why.
Yeah.
So all right. So America, obviously they were 24-25 Liga MX Apertura or Clausura winners. Monterrey was 24-25 runner-up. And then
Cruz Azul won the last edition.
Cruz Azul, it said Cruz Azul next best 3 clubs in 24-25 aggregate table. So that's why Cruz Azul, Tigres, and UNAM are there. So those are the berths. And then
I think Toluca's in the next round already.
Yeah, they're in the next round. So teams entering the round of 16. So basically you have Mount Pleasant from Jamaica, That's their first. That's their debut. I've never heard of them before. You have Alajuelense. They are the 2025 Central American Cup champions. You have the Leagues Cup, which is Seattle Sounders. You have Toluca, which are the recent, Apertura Clausura winners. And then you have Inter Miami, that's MLS Cup, 2025.
Inter Miami because they have Messi Hall Pass.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, technically they did win. They did win the MLS Cup. So, I mean, you got to be fair. I mean, I get it. People, you got to be fair. And then you have in the teams that are participating right now in the Concacaf Champions, you have three Canadian clubs. You have Vancouver FC, which they're the 2025 Canadian Championship runner-up. You have Atletico Ottawa. They're the Canadian Premier League champions. Forge FC, which is also Canadian Premier League. So I'm assuming that's what, second division over there.
It's their own. They have their own league.
Yeah, they have their own league, but obviously the top ones are the ones with MLS. You have the competition. You have the Caribbean Cup. You have Dominican Republic O&M. I've never heard of them. That's their debut. And then you also have Defense Force. Didn't they beat Chivas a couple years back? Or was that Joe Public? I don't remember. Joel, do you remember? I know you remember. You have to remember.
Doesn't ring a bell.
That's right. Doesn't ring a bell.
Not okay, Defense Force. I believe you if they've lost to.
Slightly.
But
was it West Connection? Was it West Connection?
West Connection. They did lose to some minnow team up there in the
West Connection sounds like a R&B group.
Yeah,
West Connection.
So then you have the participants that the Central American Cup. Yet they have 5 berths. So you have Sporting San Miguelito. That's from Dominican Republic. Then you had Panama. Sorry. You had from Costa Rica, Cartagenes. You had Olimpia, Real España, Xalashu from Guatemala. You had the Leagues Cup, which was the third place was LA Galaxy, and then obviously we know the League MX. We already went over those. And then for Major League, you had Philadelphia Union, which was the 2025 Supporter Shield winners. You had San Diego FC, which Western Conference season winners. And then you had
Cuatro.
Ah, damn, dude.
What? 4-1. Efrain Juarez is a fraud.
Give him.
Wow, man, this defense looks like shit, dude. Oh my god, that was so bad. That's like some Sunday league defending over there.
I mean, anytime you score 4 goals, I do expect the meme the following day.
Oh man, my neighbor's a Pumas fan, so I'm gonna give him shit right now. But yeah, this is definitely one-sided now. Pumas have an impossible return leg next week, so we'll see how it goes.
So if America pulls through and beats, Olympia, and they advance to the round of 16, they would play the winner of Defense Force and Philadelphia Union. So there could be a good chance that I may be able to, catch America.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should go see them, console them, because by that time, Chivas would have put their shit in, maybe at least 4 or 5 goals in that Clásico on the 14th.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Anything else?
No, that's it. Going to give everyone a round or their chance to give their closing thoughts. But yeah, thanks for joining us, Ron.
All right, if I may, I'll go first. So, as always, want to do my Jóvenes rundown. So, of the 378 total players available during Jornada 4, 14.8% or 15% when you round up were 23 and younger. A lot of Chivas players. So, decent number. We've seen it go down to 12, but basically stays at around 1/5 or 15%. Not a bad number. Not a bad number. Armando Gonzalez got a goal late on. Efrain Alvarez looked good, still not getting called up. Cotorro looking good. Let's see. For FC Juarez, we have Denzel Garcia getting another 90-minute under his belt. Good player, got a call up. I don't know if he'll make the squad. I doubt it. But let's see who else we have. Iker Fimbres got another 45 minutes for Monterrey. He had 2 goals a couple games ago. Good player. Aguila got another call up under Vasco during this window. I don't think he'll make the World Cup, but he has another 90 minutes. Who else do we have that stood out? Elias Montiel, another 90 minutes, but he's not the player he was last year. He was tearing it up a year ago. He's on the outside looking in. I don't think he'll make the World Cup. Gilberto Mora had 70 minutes, which is good. He didn't get called up for the friendlies because of a muscle injury, so he was given time to rest, and he got to play 70 minutes for Tijuana. And then Marcelo Flores, I don't know why I'm counting him. He just switched over to Canada, so he's gonna go to the World Cup with Canada. I'm not gonna miss him. He picked up form for Tigres and he's playing more, but I think we have better players ahead of him. And if he wants to go to Canada, then more power to him. Hopefully they can take him to the World Cup, because I don't think he's got a shot for us. And those are my closing thoughts. Thanks, everyone.
One thing I wanted to add with the young players to look out for, Cruz Medina. He's a homegrown player from my stomping grounds over here in San Jose. He got loaned out to Chivas, and he made his debut with Tapatio. So keep an eye out on Cruz Medina. He's 19 years old. Joel, are you still here?
Yes, sir. I'm still here. No real closing thoughts. Just excited for Chivas. They're in a hot streak, so let's hope that continues. And let's see how the selection plays into that, if they keep calling, a good chunk of those players. It might, mess a bit with the team. That's my Chiva take. Selección, not worried one bit. And hoping that something does happen with Libertadores, even if it's that shitty deal. I know that's mainly just to kick something off, but I miss that tourney. That is all, friends.
It's good hearing from you, Joel. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Because of the Super Bowl, all the upcoming matches this weekend will be either on Friday or Saturday. So just a heads up to everyone listening. Definitely clear out your calendar. But one thing that I really enjoyed was Sábado Futbolero, man. Like, we had a lot of entertaining matches last Saturday. We had the America, they beat Necaxa 2-0. The San Luis Chivas game was fairly entertaining, a 3-2 there. Atlas beat Mazatlan 1-0. Monterrey and Tijuana 2-2 draw. Tigres beats León 2-1. And there was only one game on Sunday. It was a boring match between Querétaro and Pachuca. I think the best match of the game of the week was the Cruz Azul Juarez 3-4. It was just back and forth, just entertaining from minute 0 all the way to the very, very end. And this weekend, it's going to be a lot of Friday, Saturday action. Tigres will play Santos at 5 p.m. Necaxa will play San Luis. Tijuana will play Puebla. And Chivas will play against Mazatlan at 7 p.m. Those are all Friday games. So stay tuned for that. And then on Saturday, we have Querétaro León. Toluca Cruz Azul. That should be a very good one. Pachuca Juarez, Atlas Pumas, and America versus Rayados. That's on Saturday. That'll be the final game of Jornada Cinco. So Sunday, you can dedicate to the pigskin, the American football. I don't really care for it, but you know, it's a huge influence, obviously, being in North America and it being in the Bay Area. So we shall see. I did have a closing thought. I had to get VIX Plus. Unfortunately, I caved in. I bought it. And I was just like searching for something to watch on Friday. And there was a game between Juarez and Toluca Femenil. And man, you know, I've talked shit about the Femenil League, but that match was fairly entertaining. Juarez was actually up 2-0. And then Toluca just came back and won the match 3-2. I was fairly entertained, and it was a nice sort of pre-game to the other matches on that Friday night. So I'm giving Femenil another chance, you know, now that I have VIX Plus and there's a bunch of soccer to watch. Yeah, I'm just glad that Liga MX is back in this very, very cold winter. And it's very cold because Chivas are on top. So I apologize for this cold front. But this avalanche will continue on Friday. We look forward to catching everyone on our next episode. Looks like San Diego is 2 minutes away from closing their 4-1 victory to Pumas. So we will catch you all on the next one. Have a good night.